The elderly woman stumbled forward, her frail hand gripping her husband's arm to keep from falling. The tour guide didn't even look back. She just kept walking, clipboard in hand, like shoving past an old lady was part of her job description. My chest tightened. We'd been standing in that museum line for 40 minutes, talking with Helen and George about their late daughter who loved ancient history. They were kind people, the gentle type who apologizes when someone bumps into them. And this guide just shoved Helen aside like garbage. "Did you see that?" I asked my wife, Vanessa. She nodded, her jaw tight. My kids, Lily, Nathan, and Sophie, stood frozen, watching Helen smooth down her cardigan with shaking hands. George patted her shoulder, whispering something I couldn't hear. My oldest, Lily, looked at me with that expression, the one that said, "Dad, are you going to do something?" I was. I walked up to a staff member near the entrance. That tour guide just shoved an elderly woman. She nearly fell. The guy barely looked up from his phone. "I'm sure it was an accident, sir." Across the lobby, the guide smirked at me, like she knew nothing would happen to her. She was wrong. Helen touched my arm gently when I returned. "Please don't make a scene, we're fine." Her voice trembled slightly, betraying her words. George nodded, but his eyes were hard. He wasn't fine either. He was just too tired to fight. I wasn't. Of course, I told them, forcing a smile. No scene. But as we finally entered the museum, my mind was already working. The guide, her name tag read Alina, was gathering her tour group near the first exhibit. She spoke loudly, condescendingly, like she was addressing children instead of paying adults. Her voice grated against my nerves. Vanessa leaned close. "I know that look." "What look?" "The HOA meeting look. The one where you systematically dismantled that guy's argument for 45 minutes. I didn't respond. I was watching Alina position herself in front of a massive fresco, blocking half her group's view while she droned on about Minoan civilization. Several people craned their necks, trying to see past her. She was bad at this job, arrogant and bad. That made what I was about to do feel almost justified. "Kids," I said quietly, "how much do you remember from those history books?" Lily grinned, "All of it." We drifted closer to Alina's group, blending in naturally. She was midway through her introduction, gesturing dramatically at the bull-leaping fresco. This depicts the ancient sport of bull-leaping, which was primarily recreational. "Educational and religious," Lily said, not quite to Alina, but loud enough. "Not recreational." A few heads turned. Alina's eyes flicked toward us, narrowing. She continued, voice slightly louder. "As I was saying, this was a popular pastime." "It was a coming-of-age ritual," Lily added, examining her nails casually. "There's pretty clear academic consensus on that." Nathan snorted, trying to hide his laugh. Sophie, my youngest at 12, was watching me with wide eyes. This was new territory for her, for all of them really. I'd always taught them to be respectful, kind, courteous. But I'd also taught them that sometimes, you have to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. Alina's jaw clenched. "If you'd like to book your own tour." "Oh, we're fine," I said pleasantly, stepping directly in front of her. "Please continue." Her face flushed. "So you're blocking." "Am I?" I looked around innocently. "I'm so sorry." I didn't move. Alina tried to step to her left. I shifted naturally, still looking at the fresco like I was fascinated. She moved right. So did Nathan, suddenly very interested in that exact spot. Sophie giggled. "Excuse me," Alina said through gritted teeth. "Oh, sorry," I moved directly into her new path. "These frescoes are just so captivating." Her tour group was getting restless. A woman in a sun hat whispered to her husband, "What's happening?" Alina's forced smile was cracking. She gestured sharply to the next exhibit. "Let's move along, shall we?" She speed-walked toward the second hall like she was trying to escape us. Her group hurried after her, confused by the sudden pace change. I caught Lily's eye. She nodded once, then she and Nathan casually broke away, taking a side corridor I'd noticed on the museum map earlier. Vanessa grabbed my arm. "Marcus, what are you doing?" "Teaching the kids about consequences. They're going to remember this forever." "Good." When I rounded the corner into the next hall 30 seconds later, Lily and Nathan were already there, standing directly in front of the centerpiece exhibit, a reconstructed Minoan storage room. They looked like they'd been there the whole time. Alina froze mid-step when she saw them, then her eyes found mine. I smiled. "As you can see," Alina began, her voice strained, "these large pottery vessels were used for." "Pithai," Nathan said cheerfully. They stored olive oil, wine, and grain. Some were over 6 feet tall. A man in the tour group lowered his phone. Is that true? Very true, Lily confirmed. They're actually one of the most important archaeological finds because they tell us about Minoan trade systems and diet. Alina's face went red. That's what I was about to explain. Oh, sorry, Lily said brightly. We're just really into ancient history. Please go on. But the damage was done. Several people in Alina's group were now looking at my kids instead of her. One woman even asked Lily, "Are you studying this in school?" "I'm doing an independent research project on Aegean Bronze Age civilizations," Lily said, which was technically true. She'd been obsessed with ancient Greece for 2 years. Alina tried to redirect. Now, if everyone could please focus, the architectural significance of these storage rooms lies in their integration with religious spaces, Lily finished. The placement suggests storage wasn't just practical but also ceremonial. Nathan coughed to hide his laugh. Sophie was openly grinning now. Alina's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her clipboard. I felt Vanessa's eyes on me. When I glanced at her, she shook her head slowly, not quite disapproving, Maury-like disbelieving. My phone buzzed. Her text read, "You know you're being kind of psychotic, right?" "Maybe, but I wasn't stopping." Alina rushed her group toward the third hall, practically jogging. Her group struggled to keep up, exchanging annoyed glances. "Why are we speed walking through a museum?" someone muttered. We followed at a leisurely pace. Sophie tugged my hand. "Dad, she looks really upset." She should have thought about that before she hurt Helen. "But, Sophie," I knelt down to her level. "Sometimes people do mean things because they think no one will stop them. We're not being mean, we're just standing in a museum, looking at art, asking questions, right?" She considered this, I guess. "And if that happens to make her uncomfortable," I stood up, "well, maybe she'll think twice next time." When we entered the third hall, Alina was already there, trying to regroup. She looked frazzled, hair slightly out of place, her professional veneer cracking. "Okay, everyone, this section contains some of our most valuable." I positioned myself directly in her sightline, not blocking the exhibit this time, just standing there, making eye contact. She faltered, "Most valuable artifacts from the palace at Knossos." "Was it definitely a palace?" Nathan asked innocently. "I read some archaeologists think it might have been a temple complex." A woman in the tour group perked up. "Really?" "There's actually ongoing debate," Lily added. "The religious artifacts and lack of fortification suggest." "That's enough," Alina snapped. The hall went silent. Her group stared at her, shocked. Alina's outburst hung in the air like a bad smell. She realized immediately she'd made a mistake. "I apologize, these are children spreading misinformation." "My daughter is citing peer-reviewed archaeological research," I said calmly. "If that's misinformation, perhaps you should take it up with the academic journals." A few people in her group looked uncomfortable now. One man asked, "Is what the girl said actually wrong?" Alina opened her mouth, closed it. "The official museum position is that this was a palace." "Which doesn't mean the debate doesn't exist," Lily said politely. "I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just saying it's complicated." The shift was subtle but unmistakable. Alina's authority was bleeding away with every word. She'd gone from confident expert to defensive amateur in 3 exhibits. I almost felt bad. Almost. Then I remembered Helen's face, the way her hands shook as she steadied herself, the way she'd thanked me but asked me not to make a scene, because people like her never made scenes. They just absorbed cruelty and moved on. "Not this time." Alina tried to continue, but her voice cracked. She stumbled over a date. "This fresco is from approximately 1700 BC, or possibly 1600. 1700 to 1450 BC is the general consensus for the Neopalatial period," Lily said, not unkindly. "It's a pretty wide range because of dating difficulties." Someone in the tour group laughed, not meanly, just nervously. Alina looked like she might cry. Alina hurried her group into the fourth hall without any preamble. No explanation of what they were about to see, no historical context, just desperate forward momentum. Her professional composure was completely gone now. I glanced at my phone. Vanessa had texted again. "She's new, look at her name tag." I zoomed in on a photo I'd taken earlier. Alina, new hire. My stomach twisted slightly. Sophie caught my expression. Dad, are we being mean? I thought about it, really thought about it. This woman had probably been working here for 2 weeks, maybe less. She was probably stressed, overwhelmed, underpaid. Maybe she'd been having the worst day of her life when she shoved past Helen. Then I thought about how she'd smirked when the staff dismissed my complaint, how she hadn't apologized, hadn't even looked back. She hurt someone weaker than her, I said finally, and didn't care. Sophie nodded slowly, processing this. In the fourth hall, Alina stood in front of a display of golden jewelry, trying to compose herself. Her hands were shaking as she raised them for attention. This collection represents the wealth disparity in Minoan society, Nathan said, right on cue. I saw it then, the exact moment Alina gave up. Her shoulders sagged, her forced smile disappeared, she just deflated. When she spoke again, her voice was flat, robotic. Yes, wealth disparity. You can see the craftsmanship in the gold work. She trailed off mid-sentence, staring blankly at the display case. A man in Alina's tour group finally spoke up. Excuse me, but why are we rushing through everything? We paid for a 2-hour tour. And why are we constantly blocked by this family? A woman added, gesturing at us. Alina's eyes darted between her group and us. She couldn't blame us without admitting she'd been outmaneuvered by a family on vacation. She couldn't slow down without having to face us head-on again. She was trapped. I apologize for the packing, she said stiffly. We'll take a short break here, 10 minutes. Her group scattered immediately, clearly frustrated. Some went to look at exhibits on their own. Others checked their phones. A few left entirely, probably to find a staff member to complain to. Alina retreated to a corner, pretending to check her tablet, but I could see her face reflected in the glass display case. She was blinking rapidly, fighting tears. Vanessa appeared beside me. Okay, you made your point. Did I? Marcus, look at her. I looked. Alina was young, mid-20s maybe. Her new hire badge stood out against her uniform. She'd probably been so excited to get this job, probably studied hard, practiced her tour, tried her best. And then she'd had one bad moment, one cruel, careless moment. And I'd destroyed her entire day for it. She shoved an elderly woman, I said quietly. I know, and smiled about it. I know, Vanessa repeated. I'm not saying she didn't deserve something, I'm just asking if you're done. I wasn't done, not quite. When the break ended and Alina gathered her remaining group, noticeably smaller now, we followed them to the fifth hall, the final section. This one contained the museum's centerpiece, a fully reconstructed Minoan throne room. Alina stood before it, took a deep breath, and tried one more time. This is a faithful reconstruction based on archaeological evidence from Knossos. The throne itself is one of the oldest in Europe. The throne of Minos, Sophie said softly, gazing up at it with genuine wonder. For a moment, she forgot this was a tactical operation. She was just a kid who loved history. It's beautiful. Alina's eyes met Sophie's. Something passed between them. A moment of shared appreciation for something ancient and meaningful. It is beautiful, Alina said quietly. Some scholars believe it wasn't actually used by a king, but by a priestess. The throne room had religious significance. Really? Sophie asked, fascinated. Really? They stood there together, looking at the throne, and for 10 seconds the war was over. Just a tour guide and a kid appreciating history. Then Nathan, oblivious, asked loudly, didn't the Mycenaean invasion pretty much destroy this whole civilization? The moment shattered. Alina's face hardened again. We can discuss the collapse theories if there's time. There are several competing theories, Lily interjected. Natural disaster, invasion, internal collapse. Alina's voice went sharp. I'm aware of the theories. The fragile piece was gone. Alina's final attempt at maintaining control came in the last exhibit, a display of linear tablets. The still undeciphered Minoan script. These tablets represent one of archaeology's greatest mysteries, she began, her voice hollow with exhaustion. Despite decades of research, Linear A remains untranslated. Unlike Linear B, which Michael Ventris deciphered in 1952, Lily said, not showing off now, just tired of the charade, we all were. Alina didn't even react, she just nodded. Yes, Linear B is Mycenaean Greek, Linear A is older, Minoan, we may never understand what these say. She stood there staring at the tablets, and I realized she wasn't talking about ancient scripts anymore. She was talking about herself, about this day, about how everything had gone wrong and she didn't understand why or how to fix it. One of her remaining tourists, an older man in a photography vest, cleared his throat. "Miss, I don't mean to be rude, but this has been a very disorganized tour." Elena flinched. "I apologize. We paid $75 per person." "I understand. If you speak to guest services, I'm sure they can arrange a refund or—" "That's not the point," a woman interrupted. "We just wanted to learn about the exhibits, but we spent half the tour trying to see around people and rushing through halls." She gestured vaguely in our direction, not quite blaming us, but almost. Elena looked at me then, really looked at me. Her eyes asked a question: why? I didn't have a good answer anymore. After the tour ended, Elena's group dispersed quickly, several of them heading straight for the guest services desk. Elena stood alone in the center of the throne room, staring at nothing. Vanessa touched my shoulder. "Come on, let's go." We started to leave. My kids were quiet, the adrenaline fading into something more complicated. Nathan walked close beside me. Lily kept glancing back at Elena. Even Sophie seemed subdued. As we passed through the doorway, I heard it, a small choked sound, not quite a sob, just a release of pressure, the sound of someone who'd been holding it together finally letting go. I stopped walking. Against every instinct, I turned back. Elena was sitting on a bench now, face in her hands. Her tablet lay forgotten beside her. Her shoulders shook slightly. Helen and George walked past us just then, heading toward the exit. Helen saw Elena and paused. She looked at me, then at Elena, then back at me. Her expression was complicated, not grateful, not angry, just sad. "She's very young," Helen said softly. "She hurt you." "I know," Helen patted my arm, "but you hurt her too, more than she hurt me, I think." George nodded. They walked away slowly, supporting each other like they'd probably done for 50 years. I stood there, frozen between the exit and Elena's, quiet devastation. Vanessa didn't say anything. She didn't need to. We left the museum in silence. The kids piled into the car without their usual chatter. Vanessa drove. I stared out the window, watching the city pass by. Finally, Nathan spoke. "Did we do something wrong?" "No," I said automatically. Then more honestly, "I don't know." She was really upset. She was. Sophie leaned forward from the back seat. "But she did hurt that nice lady." "She did," I agreed, "and that was wrong." "So we were right to, she trailed off, unable to finish. Because what had we done exactly? Stood in a museum, answered questions, shared historical facts. We'd weaponized politeness, turned knowledge into a tool for humiliation. We'd been technically right about everything while being fundamentally cruel. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "you can do something that's not against any rules but still isn't right." "But she broke the rules first," Nathan protested. "She did, and you know what happened? Nothing. The staff didn't care. No one helped Helen. The system failed." I turned to look at all three of them. "So I decided to be my own justice system, and maybe that felt good in the moment, but justice and revenge aren't always the same thing." Lily, quiet until now, said, "Do you regret it?" I thought about Helen's shaking hands, about Elena's smirk, about the new hire badge, about Elena crying alone in an empty museum hall. "I don't know," I admitted. "Ask me again tomorrow." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Elena's face, the way she'd looked at me in that final moment, asking why without words. The truth was complicated. Yes, she'd been cruel to Helen. Yes, she'd smirked when I reported it. Yes, she'd shown no remorse. But I'd been cruel too, methodically, deliberately cruel. I'd used my kids as weapons. I'd taken someone's bad moment and turned it into the worst day of their professional life. And for what? Helen had asked me not to make a scene. George hadn't wanted confrontation. I'd done this for them, supposedly, but really, I'd done it for me, because I was angry, because I couldn't let it go, because I needed to prove that actions have consequences. But whose actions, and which consequences? I picked up my phone, put it down, picked it up again. I could probably find out Elena's last name, look her up, send an apology maybe, explain that I'd gone too far, that I understood she was new, that everyone makes mistakes, that I hoped she was okay. But would that help? Or would it just make me feel better, while making her relive the whole humiliating experience? Vanessa rolled over in bed. "You're thinking too loud." "Sorry. Do you want to talk about it?" "Not sure what there is to say." She was quiet for a moment. "You taught the kids something today. I'm just not sure it was the lesson you meant to teach." She was right. I'd meant to teach them about standing up for the vulnerable, about consequences, about justice. Instead, I might have taught them about revenge, about how easy it is to justify cruelty, about how good it can feel to destroy someone as long as you tell yourself they deserved it. The next morning, I made a decision. "Kids, get in the car." "Where are we going?" Nathan asked. "Back to the museum." The drive was quiet. When we arrived, I told Vanessa and the kids to wait in the lobby. Then I went looking for Alina. I found her in a staff break room, staring at her phone. She looked up when I knocked, and her face went through several emotions rapidly: confusion, recognition, fear, anger. "I'm not here to," I started. I wanted to apologize. She stood up, crossing her arms defensively. "Is this another game?" "No, no game." I took a breath. "What you did yesterday, pushing past that elderly woman, that was wrong, and it made me angry, but what I did in response, that was wrong too. I took it too far, way too far." Alina's jaw clenched. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? I have to face my supervisor today and explain why 3 people demanded refunds, why 5 more filed complaints. My first month here, and I'm probably going to be fired." The words hit like stones. "I'm sorry." "Are you?" Her eyes were red-rimmed. "Because you looked pretty satisfied yesterday. You and your perfect family, destroying me for entertainment." "It wasn't." I stopped, because it had been, hadn't it? Maybe not entertainment exactly, but satisfaction. The pleasure of righteous revenge. "You're right, there's no excuse." "I was having the worst day of my life yesterday," Alina said, her voice breaking. "My mom is sick. I got 3 hours of sleep. I was running late. And yes, I was rude to that woman. I shouldn't have pushed past her. I should have apologized. But I panicked because I saw my supervisor watching and I just..." She wiped her eyes angrily. "Not that any of that matters to you." It did matter, but that's the thing about revenge. You don't stop to learn the story. You just strike back. "I want to make this right," I said. "I can talk to your supervisor, explain that I provoked you, that the complaints were..." "Were what? Deserved?" Alina laughed bitterly. "Because they were. You didn't lie about anything. You didn't yell or threaten me. You just stood there with your kids and systematically dismantled my authority using historical facts. How do I explain that to my boss? Sorry, the tour was terrible, but a family knew more than me." She had a point. I'd been so careful to stay within acceptable behavior. Never breaking rules, never crossing obvious lines, just exploiting every loophole to maximize damage. "Your daughter," Alina said quietly. "The oldest one, she's really smart." "Lily, yeah. She could probably do my job better than me." It wasn't self-pity, just observation. "I have a bachelor's degree in art history, but I studied Renaissance art. I don't know Bronze Age Aegean civilization like she does. I read the museum scripts, I memorized the basic facts, but..." She shrugged. "I'm not passionate about it, I just needed a job." "That doesn't mean..." "It means exactly that," Alina interrupted. "I'm not good at this. I don't have the knowledge or the people skills. Yesterday proved it. I couldn't handle one difficult situation without falling apart completely." We stood in silence. I'd come here to apologize, maybe to fix things, but I was realizing some things can't be fixed with an apology. "The elderly woman," Alina said, "is she okay?" "Shaken up, but okay." Alina nodded. "Tell her I'm sorry, really sorry, not just because of what happened after, but because I scared her. No one should feel unsafe in a museum." "I will." "And tell your kids," she paused. "Tell them they're lucky, having a dad who stands up for people, even if his methods are questionable." I returned to the lobby where my family waited. "Well?" Vanessa asked. I apologized. It didn't fix anything, but I apologized. "Is she going to be okay?" "I don't know, probably not." I looked at my kids. "I need to tell you all something. What we did yesterday, I called it justice, but it wasn't. It was revenge, and there's a difference." "What's the difference?" Sophie asked. "Justice is about making things fair. Revenge is about making someone hurt because you hurt. Justice considers the whole situation. Revenge just reacts." I sat down heavily. Alina was wrong to push past Helen, but she was also having a terrible day. Her mom is sick, she's new at her job and overwhelmed. None of that excuses what she did, but it explains it. "So we were wrong?" Nathan asked. "We were cruel. Sometimes that's worse than being wrong." I looked at Lily. "You used your knowledge, which is a gift, as a weapon, and I encouraged it. That's on me, not you." Lily's eyes welled up. "I thought we were helping." "I know, sweetheart, I thought so too. but helping would have been making sure Helen was okay, maybe filing a formal complaint through proper channels. What we did was I struggled for words. We broke someone because we could, because it felt good, and that's not something I want you to learn from me. Vanessa put her hand on mine. What do we do now? We go find Helen and George, make sure they're genuinely okay. Then we go home and think about what happened here, about how easy it is to be cruel when you think you're being righteous. Sophie looked troubled. Will the tour guide lose her job? Maybe. That makes me sad. Me too, honey, me too. We found Helen and George at a cafe near the museum. They invited us to join them, and we sat in awkward silence for a moment before Helen spoke. You went back, she said. It wasn't a question. I apologized to Alina, the tour guide. That was kind of you. It was the bare minimum. I looked at both of them. I used what happened to you as an excuse to punish someone. I told myself it was justice, but you both knew better. That's why you asked me not to make a scene. George stirred his coffee thoughtfully. You meant well. Meaning well isn't enough. No, Helen agreed gently. It's not, but it's a start. She reached across the table and patted my hand. That young woman hurt my feelings and scared me a bit, but what you did to her was worse. Sustained, calculated worse. You see that now? I do. Then you've learned something. She smiled, and it was kind but sad. We older folks, we know something about cruelty. We know it compounds. One person's rudeness becomes another person's revenge, becomes another person's retaliation. It never ends unless someone chooses to step back. I should have stepped back sooner. Yes, but you stepped back eventually. That counts for something. Sophie leaned against me. Are you still mad at the tour guide? Helen considered this. No, dear, I was never really mad, just hurt. And now I'm hurt for her too, because I imagine yesterday was awful for her. It was, I confirmed. Then perhaps that's enough punishment. George nodded. The world is hard enough without us making it harder for each other. We spent another hour with Helen and George, talking about everything except the museum incident. They told stories about their daughter, about their 53 years of marriage, about the small kindnesses they tried to show each other every day. That's the real lesson, George said as we prepared to leave. Not revenge or justice or consequences, just basic human kindness. It's harder than it sounds. He was right. It was much easier to feel righteous anger than to feel compassion. Easier to punish than to understand. Easier to break than to build. As we walked back to our car, Lily asked, Dad, can we go back to the museum sometime? To actually learn, I mean, not to do what we did. I'd like that. And maybe, she added quietly, if Alina is still working there, we could join her tour. For real this time, be good tourists. Nathan nodded enthusiastically. We could actually help her look good instead of bad. That's a nice idea, Vanessa said, though she might not want to see us again. True, I admitted, but if we get the chance, we should take it. Sophie grabbed my hand. Do you feel better now, after apologizing? A little, not completely. I think feeling completely better would mean I didn't really understand what I did wrong. That's confusing. Yeah, being a grown-up usually is. We drove home in comfortable silence, the car filled with a different feeling than yesterday. Not triumph or satisfaction, something quieter, something like humility. A week passed, then two. I kept thinking about Alina, wondering if she'd been fired, if she'd found another job, if she was okay. I thought about calling the museum to ask, but that felt intrusive. I'd done enough damage. Then 3 weeks after the incident, I got an email. The museum's guest services address, but the message was personal. Mr. Whitmore, this is Alina Garcia. I wanted to let you know I'm still employed at the museum. After our conversation, I spoke with my supervisor and explained the situation, all of it, including my part in what happened. She was disappointed but understanding. I'm on probation, but I get a second chance. I also wanted you to know I've been studying. Really studying, not just memorizing scripts. I realized you and your daughter were right. I wasn't passionate about this material and it showed. I'm trying to fix that. I'm not writing to make you feel better or worse, just to close the loop. What happened that day taught me something about consequences and responsibility. Maybe it taught you something too. I hope your family is well, and please thank your children for the indirect history lesson. Tell Lily she should consider becoming a museum educator. She's a natural. Elena. I read it 3 times, then I showed Vanessa. Well, she said, that's something. It's more than something, it's grace I didn't deserve. So what will you do? I thought about it, then I wrote back. Alina, thank you for your email. I'm relieved to hear you still have your job, and I'm impressed by how you handled the situation with your supervisor. Taking responsibility isn't easy. I've spent the past 3 weeks teaching my kids about the difference between justice and revenge, about proportional responses, and about how easy it is to justify cruelty when you think you're in the right. It's been a hard lesson for all of us. I'm glad you're studying more, not because you weren't good enough before, but because passion makes everything better. My daughter Lily would be honored to know she inspired that. I want you to know that what I did was wrong, period, no matter what preceded it. I used my anger and my children to hurt you, and I'm sorry. If you're comfortable with it, my family would like to return to the museum and join one of your tour. As genuine, respectful participants. No agenda, no games. Just a family trying to learn and trying to show that people can be better than their worst moments. If you'd rather not see us again, I completely understand. Marcus Whitmore. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The response came faster than I expected. Mr. Whitmore, I'd like that. Next Saturday 2 p.m. tour. I'll leave your names at the desk. And Mr. Whitmore, we're both trying to be better. That's what matters. Alina. I showed the email to my kids. Sophie clapped her hands. Nathan grinned. Lily just nodded, but I could see relief in her eyes. So we get a do-over? Sophie asked. Not a do-over, I corrected. A do-better. Saturday arrived. We stood in line at the museum, the same line where this had all started. Helen and George weren't there this time, but I'd called them earlier to tell them what was happening. Helen had been pleased. Breaking the cycle, she'd said. That's how healing starts. When we reached the front, the staff member checked our names and smiled. You're on Alina's tour. She's waiting inside. We entered nervously. Alina stood by the first exhibit, greeting her tour group. When she saw us, she tensed for just a moment, then relaxed and smiled. It wasn't quite natural yet, but it was genuine. Welcome, she said as we approached. I'm glad you came. We're glad to be here, I replied. The right way this time. She nodded, then addressed the full group. Hello, everyone. I'm Alina, and I'll be your guide today as we explore Minoan civilization. Before we start, I want to acknowledge that we have some special guests, a family who knows quite a bit about this subject. If I get anything wrong, feel free to correct me. The group chuckled. Lily blushed. We're just here to learn, she said. Good, Alina replied warmly. Then let's begin. The tour was different this time. Alina spoke with more confidence, less script reading and more storytelling. She'd clearly been studying. When she explained the bull-leaping fresco, she mentioned the academic debate about its purpose, recreational versus religious, and nodded at Lily. Different scholars have different interpretations, which makes archaeology fascinating. We stayed in the back, listening. At one point, a tourist asked a complicated question about Minoan trade routes. Alina answered well, then added, though if you want more detail, there's a young expert in our group who could probably expand on that. She looked at Lily encouragingly. Lily glanced at me. I nodded. She stepped forward not to undermine but to contribute. She spoke for 2 minutes about Mediterranean trade networks, and when she finished, Alina thanked her genuinely. See, this is what I love about these tours. Everyone brings something to the conversation. The dynamic had completely flipped. Last time we'd weaponized knowledge. This time we were sharing it. Last time, Alina had been defensive and brittle. This time she was confident enough to admit what she didn't know and generous enough to let others shine. At the storage room exhibit, Nathan raised his hand. Can I ask about the pithing? Of course, Alina said. Last time he stopped, glancing at me. I mean, I read that they were important for understanding trade. Is that true? Alina smiled, understanding the real question. Very true, and you know what? Last time I gave this tour, someone taught me that lesson. I'm grateful they did. The moment was small but significant. Acknowledgement without dwelling, moving forward without forgetting. As the tour progressed through the final halls, something unexpected happened. The other tourists began engaging more, asking questions, sharing observations. Alina had created an atmosphere of collaborative learning rather than passive listening. She turned her earlier humiliation into a teaching moment about humility and growth. When we reached the throne room, Sophie gasped just like she had before. It's still so beautiful. Alina knelt beside her. You know what I learned about this throne? Every time I study it, I find something new. That's the magic of history. It never stops teaching us if we stay curious. Like people? Sophie asked. Exactly like people. Vanessa squeezed my hand. This was what we'd needed, not revenge, not even apology, but restoration. The chance to rebuild what we'd broken. At the linear tablets, Elena paused. These remain one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. We may never fully understand what they say, but that's okay. Some things are valuable precisely because they're mysteries. They remind us there's always more to learn, always more to discover about the past. She looked at our family briefly, and about each other. The tour ended with applause. Several people thanked Elena personally, complimenting her knowledge and teaching style. One woman said, "This was the best museum tour I've ever taken." Elena beamed. As the group dispersed, we hung back. Elena approached us. "Thank you for coming, and for," she gestured vaguely, "for being part of the learning process. Mine, I mean." "Thank you for giving us the chance," I replied. Lily stepped forward. "You're really good at this, I mean it." "So are you. Have you thought about studying archaeology in college?" "Every day." Elena smiled. "Then maybe I'll see you at a conference someday. As a colleague, not a," she trailed off. "Not someone I'm sabotaging," Lily finished, then winced. "Sorry, too soon." Elena laughed, a real, unguarded laugh. "Maybe a little, but it's okay. We're good." And somehow, impossibly, we were. That night, the kids were quieter than usual at dinner. Finally, Nathan spoke. "Dad, today felt better than last time." "It did. But last time felt good too. In the moment, I mean, that's the confusing part." I set down my fork. "Yeah, that is the confusing part. Revenge feels good. It's satisfying and immediate, but that feeling doesn't last. You know what does last?" "What?" "Doing the harder thing. Apologizing, making amends, trying again. That doesn't feel as good in the moment, but it feels better over time. It lets you sleep at night." Sophie nodded thoughtfully. "So being nice is harder but better." "Usually, not always, but usually." I looked at all three of them. "I'm not saying never stand up for people. Always stand up for people. Just remember that the goal is to make things better, not just to make someone hurt because you're hurting." Lily played with her napkin. "I've been thinking about Helen, about what she said, that cruelty compounds. I think she's right. If Elena had stayed mean after what we did, and we did something worse and then she retaliated, it just keeps going." "Exactly, someone has to be brave enough to stop the cycle." "Is that what we did today?" Nathan asked. "Stop the cycle." "We tried to." Elena helped. "She could have held a grudge, but she didn't. That took courage." Later, after the kids went to bed, Vanessa found me on the porch. "You did good today." "We all did. You know they'll remember this forever. Both days, the revenge and the redemption." "I know." I looked up at the stars. "Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe they need to remember both. The satisfaction of revenge and the peace of making it right, so they can choose which one they want to be." "Which one do you want to be?" I thought about Elena's email, about Helen's grace, about my kids learning that adults make mistakes too, and that what matters is what you do after. "I want to be someone who makes mistakes but tries to fix them," I said finally. "Someone who teaches my kids that being right isn't as important as being kind. Someone who breaks cycles instead of continuing them." Vanessa leaned against me. "That's a good goal." "Yeah," I agreed, "it is." And though I'd probably still defend the people I loved too aggressively sometimes, though I'd probably still let anger cloud my judgment on occasion, I knew one thing for certain. I'd never forget the look on Elena's face when she was drowning in her own humiliation. Never forget Helen's gentle wisdom about cruelty compounding. Never forget that my kids were watching and learning every time I chose revenge or redemption. Some lessons you teach in a classroom, others you teach in a museum, on both the worst and best versions of the same day. I'd choose redemption next time, probably.